Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk about Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody on a Theme of Paganini. Now, everybody loves this piece, and every pianist who can get his fingers on it has recorded it. But this is one of the easy ones. I mean, it really is, because there are 6 ineluctably great recordings of the work, and if you have one of them, then you're going to be all set. Now, a million other pianists have done it. They include it often in collections of the complete piano concertos. Occasionally, there are singleton performances that come out, often coupled to a similar work, like Dochnany's Variations on a Nursery Tune. And a lot of these performances are very, very good. I'm not going to disparage any of them. I just think that, if you really want to have a really, really good one, there are a half dozen that have withstood the test of time, and one newcomer that looks fair to withstand the test of time. So we have to begin with, we have to begin with Rachmaninoff himself, who recorded this with Leopold Stokowski and the Philadelphia Orchestra. Now, naturally, the sound is extremely limited, and, it's up to you whether you're going to care about how much you can actually hear, because the orchestral part is extremely important. And even though Stokowski conducts very well, of course, and Rachmaninoff plays very well, there's a lot of detail that goes by the wayside. The Naxos transfers, by the way, are generally superior to the RCA transfers, and there have been others as well. It's up to you which one you want to get, or if you want to get it at all. It's useful to hear Rachmaninoff's take on the work because his own interpretations of his own music tended to be very straightforward and admirably swift. I mean, let me just see here. Let's look at the booklet. And oh yes, of course, this is one of those ones where they time every variation in like little teeny bitlets. So that's not terribly helpful. But my point is that generally speaking, the piece should take less than 25 minutes. More than that, or at that limit, and you're starting to sort of head into ponderousness territory. The best performances run between 21-ish, 20 and 23 minutes and a bit, somewhere in there, because it really ought to be a lively piece. And that great 18th variation in the middle, the big tune, the one that all the Olympic skaters skate to, da 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 da, which is actually just a strict inversion of the theme. It's a remarkable piece of writing. That should not be so slow that it becomes an entire complete work all by itself. It has to be heard within the context of the other variations, flow out of them, and lead back into them. And that's really what a great performance does. And then, of course, the final wind-up has so much captivating orchestral detail that you really need to hear that you don't hear in Rachmaninoff's own version, especially at the end when the huge Dies Irae theme comes in with ornamentation, basically, on the woodwinds and piccolos with the glockenspiel, and, all of that has to sound maximally brilliant. So I really do suggest, although Rachmaninoff's own recording is a good one for the basic pacing of the piece, and because he was an astounding pianist, especially in his own music. He was left-handed and had a reach of 5 octaves or something, It's really important to get more modern recordings, obviously, and not to assume that because this is the composer's vision, it's the only vision. Anyway, the next one, which I have in the box behind me, is William Kapell. Now, this is also with Reiner, with the Robin Hood Dell Orchestra, which is basically the Philadelphia Orchestra in their summer place there. It's an absolutely terrific performance. Reiner, of course, is great to have. And this tells us something about the work, which is, frankly, although the pianist has to be brilliant, and God knows Kapell is brilliant, his early death was a terrible, terrible loss, you also need a conductor, a really serious, terrific conductor to give the orchestral part just as much personality as the pianist gives the keyboard part. So with Reiner at the helm, you're going to get a good version of it. And so we do. That's a mono recording, but it sounds quite good. And it's really a wonderful memento to a great artist whose career was never fulfilled in the way that it should have been. Reiner also appears, of course, in this classic version with Arthur Rubinstein. This is one of the great recordings. It always has been since the day it was issued. It's a living stereo. It sounds fantastic. This is the recording from the old Rubinstein edition, but there's now a new Rubinstein edition, and it's also available separately, a living stereo, coupled several different ways. Most recently, I think, with Falla's Nights in the Gardens of Spain and some Chopin works for piano and orchestra. Rubinstein's performance is wonderfully majestic and virtuosic by turns. It really is. And with Reiner doing amazing things with the orchestral accompaniment, the result has a thrill that in some ways has never really been equaled. One of the things that Rubinstein always had when he was on, and here he's really on, was just a sort of a poise about his playing. Nothing ever sounds as though it's straining for effect, but he's got the chops, and the piece comes off wonderfully as a result. Now, moving on a little bit, we have Earl Wild with Jascha Horenstein. Now, this is the fastest version. It's only a little more than 20 minutes. And the reason it's so quick, for the most part, is because they don't really slow down very much for the 18th variation, which I think is wonderful. The whole performance is tremendously well integrated. And usually with Horenstein, particularly in his later career, he became horribly stiff. He really couldn't change tempo to save his life. I mean, it ruined a lot of his Mahler performances because he wasn't able, within a movement, to show the flexibility that the music required. Here, a certain stiffness of tempo is completely masked because you have Earl Wild going crazy over the piano part, and the urgency carries over into the consistent tempo that you hear for the 18th variation. The sound is also fabulous. And Earl Wild, of course, he's a pianist. He was a genius at the keyboard and one of the great romantic virtuosi that survived into the 20th century to make a lot of recordings. And this cycle of Rachmaninov piano concertos the whole cycle is one of the absolutely essential acquisitions. Next, Zoltán Kocis with the San Francisco Symphony and Edo de Vart. Now this is one of the great sort of unsung Rachmaninov cycles. The tempos are very, very similar to Rachmaninoff's own speeds. And Zoltán Kocis's finger work is just quicksilver. It's light and mercurial and absolutely thrilling. Sound is really good. This is also a cycle that has been very badly treated by the record company. It did come out in a duo. It came out in a couple single mid-priced things. But by and large, it has not lasted in the catalog as long as it deserves to. Actually, nothing by Kocis has been treated all that well in my view. He deserves a big box to himself. He hasn't gotten one yet. And this performance of the Paganini Rhapsody is as close as you'll probably get to hearing Rachmaninoff's own version, but in great sound and, frankly, with even better piano playing. So that's definitely, if you can find it, and it's still around, it pops up now and again, you really have to have this entire cycle. And finally, last but certainly not least, we get Stephen Hough, Andrew Litton, and the Dallas Symphony on Hyperion. This is, for my money, the great Rachmaninoff piano cycle of the 21st century, at least so far. I mean, Hough is an incredibly sensitive pianist, thoughtful and virtuosic by turns. Litton is an ace in Russian music. I mean, he recorded all of the symphonies and a lot of the orchestral music already for Virgin. They were pretty terrific recordings for the most part. And so, again, it's a collaboration. You have to have a great collaboration in order to make the piece work. If you just are a virtuoso accompanist and the accompaniment is lackadaisical or uninterested, the piece fails. And likewise, you could have a jet-setting conductor who's all fire and brimstone, and a soloist who isn't great, and then the piece fails. It requires a duo, two equally inspired and brilliant people to carry off the work. And these are the performances that do. It's that simple. There's Rachmaninov, to recapitulate, Capel, Rubinstein, Wilde, and now Stephen Hough on Hyperion. If you have any of those versions, you are all set for the Paganini Rhapsody. And if any of your own favorite pianists have done it, then more power to you. Go enjoy it with them too. But these are the versions to own. So keep on listening, folks, and thank you.